Restaurant Unstoppable, episode 717 with Chef Mark Estee. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, Chef Mark Estee. Mark, are you feeling unstoppable today?
I'm feeling 100% unstoppable right now.
Yes, that is what we like to hear. So Chef Mark Estee is an award-winning chef, restaurateur, and visionary on a mission to reinvent dining cultures as we know it. Today, Estee owns Liberty Food and Wine Exchange in downtown Reno, the Union in downtown Carson City. Say this for me one more time. I'm going to say it wrong. I know I am.
Chez, louie.
Chez, louie, inside Nevada Museum of Art, the historic Overland Restaurant and Pub and restaurant that recently opened Cucina Lupo in Carson City. He also is a managing partner at Campo Mammoth. Estee has been featured on Food Network and Cooking Channel. He's a James Beard Award nominee and was awarded Best New Restaurant by Esquire. Man, you got a lot going on. Was also also honored as Entrepreneur of the Year by Reno Gazette Journal. We're talking to a boss right now, man. I cannot wait to get into your story, but let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
You know, in my years in the kitchen and in business, the biggest thing that I can always try to talk to people about is the culture that you create. Yes. What kind of culture do we create with our personalities, when we hire people, with our food, with our beverage service? You know, this is who we are. So we try to create a culture of learning, caring, and respect.
Yeah.
And like just a really simple hit of creating a culture of learning, caring, and respect that can apply to so many different things. And I really find that makes us unstoppable.
Yes, man. I like what you did there at the unstoppable too. So learning, culture, respect. Why those three? There's so many things we can create culture around.
Yeah.
Why did you choose those three?
I mean, I think in the restaurant business, the food and beverage industry, at least the things that I've seen in my years in here, if we're always learning, if that quest for knowledge is there, and we're always looking, I'm having to do this for close to 30 years now. And if I'm constantly still trying to learn more, everybody around is also learning more, and we're sharing ideas with each other, and we're trying to push ourselves and get better. We don't get complacent. So learning is a huge key for me. And the caring part is a way, caring is something to me that means a lot, because when I came up, we weren't very cared for very well. You know, it's just like you got whipped. Yeah, 16-hour days. You got paid for 8. You know, you came in on your day off. If your mise en place wasn't perfect, you got kicked out of the kitchen. You didn't get to eat if you didn't do good. You know, it wasn't very caring. These days, you really want to kind of create that caring environment, because if you're learning, you want to create a place where people feel that they can share their ideas. And if they share their ideas, and if we care enough about each other, even if it's not necessarily the best idea, we let them down in a way with a little bit of care to that. And it also helps us retain great employees, because you can't do it all by yourself. No matter how great of a chef you are, or how great anyone thinks they are, you can never do it alone. Yeah. So if you're always teaching people, and you're always learning and willing to learn, and you show care to your people from a standpoint of their work ethic and their home life, and help them have some balance, you come to the next part, which is the respect. And the respect goes both ways, right? Everyone wants to be respected, and everyone complains about not being respected. And I get no respect, and Rodney Dangerfield, right? No respect at all. You know, the idea really is that if you give respect, you get respect, you know, and I'm talking about respect of people. I'm talking about respect of products, especially. I'm talking about respect of, boundaries these days. You know, the last few years, we've seen a lot come up with that. You know, you just have to have that mindset of, you can't be that one, you can't have these blinders on and be that chef or that restaurant owner who just cares about, making French fries. You know, you have to understand the learning part, the caring part, the respect part. And that all together creates that culture. And that's the culture that, people want to work in. And that's how you end up with 1 restaurant, 2 restaurants, 3 restaurants, 4 restaurants, 5 restaurants, and because you created that, and they can survive and they can thrive in that atmosphere.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say we got that motivational, inspirational ball rolling. Great way to pop this sucker off. I love how you say you got to give respect before you get respect. And it's been my kind of understanding, my learning through all these interviews, that statement of giving before you get is kind of universal and beyond just respect. You know, do you want to reflect on that?
Yeah, I mean, I was, thank God I was raised right, I like to say. You know, I mean, I'm far from perfect, but my parents really raised me in a great way. I'm from Boston. I was raised outside of Boston in a little town, Billerica, Massachusetts. But it was a case where it's kind of like we just did things without respecting anything back, you know, and it ended up being, you know, as I went on, that golden rule where we do things and you end up doing something and you get tenfold in return, you know. So I kind of feel like we live by that these days, and especially these days, it allows us to give without expecting anything back. And then we're pleasantly surprised how good it feels when you just give with no expectation.
I love it, man. I love it. I really do. So where does it make sense to start telling your story? You already mentioned you're from Billerica, Massachusetts. Were you working in the industry when you were in high school? Or like, when did you know that this was going to be your path?
You know, don't be fooled by my childish boyhood looks. I'm 49 years old. So I got into this when I was about 18. When I graduated high school, even in high school, I knew I wanted to be a chef. But back in 1986, 87, 88, you had to be crazy to be a chef, right? Like I played football. I was like a big man on campus. The last thing my dad was going to do was allow me to go to culinary school. And no one had a clue what culinary school was. I mean, you know, Emeril Lagasse hadn't hit the waves yet. No, it was Johnson & Wales and the CIA. Mm-hmm. And, you know, my dad said, go get your regular degree, then go get this little culinary thing. And I spent 3 years in college playing football, drinking beers. Then I quit and went to culinary school. And the rest is history. At that point, I knew I found what I wanted to do.
So is it worth hanging out, spending some time in your experience at culinary school as far as the conversation goes? Were there any key mentors that kind of stand out? Any key experiences that we can extract from your story?
Yeah, I think the one thing I saw in culinary school, and I think it's different now because I do have a lot of culinary students come through here. One, there's a million culinary schools out there, great communities, college programs out there. You don't need to go to the most prestigious school. You go to culinary school to learn the basics. You know, some of the best mentors that I had are the ones who taught me all those things, right? I have this great story that I love talking about. So my mom, I'm Greek and Italian. My mom used to make Greek soup, and in culinary world, we temper, right? She'd temper the hot stock with the eggs and the lemon that would be together. So she would always make this noise, right? And she would put the hot stock into the cold eggs, and then she'd bring it all back together, and it would come to a nice, you know, we'd have a nice like viscous soup, really delicious. It was kind of thickened up by the egg, right? But you couldn't scramble them. And I'd say, Ma, why do you make that noise? Well, that Nana Valerie taught me that. The first day of culinary school, I learned what tempering is. I go home, call my mother. I said, don't need to make that noise anymore, Ma. You're tempering. And she's like, oh, great. I understand now. So, you know, little things like that, you get these, you get some basic stuff in there. And back then, you know, Johnson & Wales, the CIA were the best places you had to go. And now there's multiple locations of all those. Again, we have about 6 people working for us now in our group who came out of Truckee Meadows Community College. I'm based here in Reno now. And TMCC has a great program, and we've got some really great hires out of there. And, you know, you don't need to go to culinary school. I definitely wouldn't spend the money on the 4-year degree. Sorry, Johnson & Wales. But, you know,
I agree with you. I'm right there with you. I think what we need to, before culinary school, it was apprentice programs. And I think that's, I mean, we're the pendulum's swinging back in that direction right now. We're realizing that we don't, with access to the internet, we have literally, we don't need books anymore. Right. We can get anything we want. As far as if we can do a Google search, we can get that knowledge. And I think where the cost was in a college prior was in the network that you were paying for. You go to Johnson & Wales, you go to the CIA, you're paying for the funnel. You know, they're going to connect you with the rest of the country. That's what you're paying for back in, you know, 1985. You know, you were learning, but more than anything, you're getting access to that network. We don't need these things as much as we used to. We can connect on Instagram. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I'm right there with you, man.
So yeah, it was, that's what kind of where my journey began. And, you know, before that I had washed dishes, worked as a short order cook for a couple shifts here and there, but I just kind of kicked it around. And like most chefs, they find their way to this, you know, and, you know, the men and women in the kitchen that I've worked with over the years have been phenomenal. You know, I always say, like, you can really teach anybody to cook, but can you teach them to be all the other things that make a great cook?
Yes. Oh man, that's a packed. I mean, I feel like we could unpackage that. What we could spend hours just talking about. What are all the other things that make a great cook? Right? Well, just give me 2 or 3 things that come to mind. The other things that people don't consider.
Other things is, you need to have a kind of understanding of your place. I call it humility, understanding who you are. And these days, go in and the skill of cooking is definitely something that is powerful. It's liberating. It's freedom. If you can go in and rock a station one night and you're busy, there's definitely a lot of energy running through the kitchen. But the things that other people don't really, that you need to remember is like, have a sense of understanding who you are in the place, right? Like, it's not all about you. I think when I was coming up, I thought it was all about me, right? No, it's about the guests. It's about the customer. It's about the people experiencing our food, understanding how you fit in a team. This is a team sport. And if anyone tells you different, they're not teaching you proper. It's a team sport, from the dishwasher to the newest line cook, to the longest line cook, to the sous chef, to the chef de partie, to the executive sous chef, to the executive chef, and straight down the same line on the same brigade on the other side. It's a team sport. And, to understand that, and if you can get that big picture look, take those blinders off, I think that's something that really helps people understand cooking. And then the thing that I find, and this is the part that I think we're really lucky. I have a lot of great guys and gals who came up with me. We teach a lot about numbers, the business side of this. Sure. I mean, this is a penny, pickle, pinch business. There's a fine line between success and failure. It's about razor thin. There's nothing that gets by that's not really important. Now, great, you're a great cook, but if you screw up a dish and you keep throwing away the chicken tenders, or you keep throwing away the filet mignons, you're overcooking them, we ain't gonna be around very long.
Yeah.
So, those are the 3 things that I point out that make a great cook.
Why is this so important to not just say, hey, it's important that you don't waste that chicken, but how far do you take it with letting them know about the numbers? Like, we're like, to paint the picture of what letting them know about the numbers looks like. How far do you go with that educational piece?
I feel like we prepped each other, but we didn't. So there's a operation that we go through here. We call it bread plates, right? I'll take 100 bread plates. We have meetings every day, but quarterly we have like bigger meetings with all the staff. We have about 222 employees. And we'll stack the bread plates. Once a year, I do the bread plate deal. So I stack the bread plates up, and I take a P&L from one of the restaurants. And I say, okay, Johnny, remove 37 bread plates. That's labor. Okay, Susie, remove, 30 bread plates. Okay, that's cost of goods, right? Remove 10 bread plates, Joe. Oh, that's rent expense. Okay, remove 10 bread. You get my point, right? We go all the way down. Sometimes there's 1 bread plate left, right? And that's a 10% profit, right? Yeah. So you look at it, or it's a 1% profit. So you just, they kind of put their eyes on that kind of thing. Yeah. And I'm like, every time, and we always make a joke, because you want to keep it light for these people, right? A lot of people are first-time cooks, or they're not understanding it, but people have been around. Every time someone breaks something, they go, bread plates. Or every time someone makes a mistake, they go, bread plates. Because I would say, hey, if we get to a certain level, I'll close the restaurant, we'll all go to Italy. And I just, I meant it for a few years, but we never got there,
Well, I was thinking to myself, I can like picture you like taking that last plate that's left, that's for you, and then you just drop it to make a point, and it shatters. You go, well, there goes our profit, and it's the image, right? It's like every little thing.
Yeah, I heard of a guy doing that with $100 bills, but I'm not that rich yet.
So let's get back to your story. Thank you for getting into that, by the way. Huge lesson. Back to your story. I know that you spent some time in Lake Tahoe, San Francisco, Boston. Like, you're from Boston, so I'm assuming you were working in Boston after Johnson & Wales. I know you spent 6 years at Hyatt Corporation. So we're in the chronology. Like, take us real quick. Go like the big picture.
I got a good quick one. So graduate culinary school in '93. Take a job. I was working in Providence, Rhode Island, at a restaurant called Portefeuille. Great French restaurant. Went to the Hyatt in Cambridge as a line cook. 1 year as a cook. Worked. I mean, my first job was 3 to 11. I used to go in at 7 a.m. 4 days a week, and I'd stay till 2, and off the clock, and I just work for free. And then I take lunch and then go punch in and work my job. 2 years there. Left as the banquet chef. transferred out to the Hyatt Lake Tahoe. 3 years there. Exec Sue left, manager of the year twice, one in Cambridge, one in Lake Tahoe. Gary Danko, San Francisco, got delayed, came back, opened up a restaurant in Truckee, California, a private country club. 3 years there. 2001, left, opened my first restaurant that I ever owned when I was 31, called Moody's Bistro and Lounge in Truckee, California. And spent 10 years in Truckee. And during that time, opened up a place called Burger Me, which has been on the Food Network. It's kind of a famous place. There's 3 locations of that. I sold that in 15.
All right.
Left Moody's, came down to Reno in 2010, opened up Campo, which I've since sold. That's the one that won the Esquire. I had a place called Reno Provisions, which is now Liberty, which I'm sitting in right now. Chez Louie. We had Heritage, sold that. Campo Mammoth, still going.
Okay, this is helpful. This is helpful. Thank you very much for painting that picture, man. You've been busy. Give it. I can't hear the word Truckee and not think of our past guest, Misty Young. You must know Misty.
Misty's great.
I've been to Truckee. I was in Tahoe not too long ago. That's when I first found you. I was trying to look for guests in Reno, and we weren't able to connect. You were out of town at that time, but I love that area. It's gorgeous.
Awesome. Misty does great. She does such a good job up there. I knew her when she first took over the Squeeze. I would go in there and get the Ronnie No Sprouts, and she took it over. And man, her family, they've turned that thing into a kick-ass machine.
Her daughters are doing a great job with it.
Yeah.
So, okay, back to your story though. I mean, you spent some time at a big corporation. I think that's a good thing. But before we get into that, I want to the little nugget. You said you were working for free. Would you recommend people do that today? I'm curious.
Oh, yes. We call it staging. It's staging, right? And that's where you go in and work for free. You find somebody you like, you want to learn more, you go in and knock on the door and say, can I come work for you? Sure, no problem. And, so I went to the Hyatt and I worked there. And, I got a little bit harassed. Everyone thought I was a kiss ass. But I wanted to immerse it. I just got out of culinary school. I didn't want to work just 3 to 11. I was getting paid for that. But at the time, there was a kosher kitchen I worked in. There was a butcher shop, a saucier, a garde-manger, a bake shop, the cafeteria, the 3-meal restaurant. I was a line cook at the Italian restaurant. So, I wanted to just immerse myself in everything possible. So it's basically like going to school for free again.
Yeah.
I think that working.
Bingo. You just said it right there. Going to school for free again. And we were talking earlier about apprenticeships, right? And this mentality that when you're young, you have 2 things, time and energy. And the older you get, the less of those things you get, right? And you have to look at that time and energy as being an asset. There's more assets out there than just your money and the tangible things you own. Time and energy. Use those assets to get out there, to get the experience, to network, and do it for free. The value of showing your hustle and showing how badly you want it, like in putting that energy in, it will open so many doors for you, and you can. And the people, I don't think we put enough emphasis. I mean, some people will say controversial, like your time is money. Don't be generous with your time. But I say, if you're young and you're hungry, use that time to show people how bad you want it, and open those doors. What are you thinking when I'm saying this?
You're exactly right. Books are great. Watching videos are great, but getting there and doing it and spending the time in the feet and just kind of learning it. Again, you're not just learning the cooking part. The best things I learned was like from the guys who worked in garde-manger who had been there for 20 years. They taught me about having a proper attitude. These 2 guys, Ike and Jack, God rest their soul, they both passed away. But they would tell me about how, hey, man, every day you come in, you always say hello. We really appreciate that. Watch this. This guy only comes over and says hi when he wants something.
Yeah.
Watch this. Watch this. He never says goodbye and thank you. Watch this. So I learned these lessons. And by watching other people fail. Yeah. And I've carried them on, and I've added them to the way, like in our restaurant group, if you're a manager, even an employee, you have to walk in and say hello and goodbye. When you walk out, you have to say goodbye. When you walk in, you have to say hello. Otherwise, you're in trouble.
Yeah. I mean, I had a short stint when I first started the podcast when I was managing a restaurant. And that lesson right there of just making it a point to find everybody who's on staff, to look them in the eyes and say goodbye, thank you. Crush. We want to be seen. We need to be seen. It's right up there above. You got you need food and shelter, then you need security, and right next is being seen, right? It's so valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. And then how do you learn things, right? So if I say goodbye to you every day, maybe one day I notice in your eyes that you're not feeling well. or I notice you're sad, or I notice an emotion on you. Hey, come on over, Eric. Tell me what's going on. And you might say, something happened at home, which I can maybe help you with, or something's going on at work. Like I saw somebody do something that's not right. And then you develop that relationship, and that's how your people get to kind of tell you what's going on in the world. If you just sit there and just only look at them like robots, well, then they're not going to give you the same respect.
Yeah. I know you mentioned the gentleman or the gentlemen that taught you this or have since passed, but let's say their names just one more time to let their
Ike Thomas, Isaiah Thomas, believe it or not, and Jack Thornhill.
Nice. I mean, that's just a valuable lesson. I just needed to.
Cambridge, Massachusetts. Those guys used to cook. Oh, I learned so much out of those guys. I mean, these guys they were in it 30 years before I got to them. So they were cooking back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
I love it. So 6 years in corporate Hyatt setting. I think that corporate experiences can be great. What did that teach you?
That taught me a little bit about the business there. My mentor chef, Eric Houston, he's still with the company. He's a bigwig, and he's based out of Phoenix, Arizona now, out of Scottsdale. And, he taught me a lot about that kind of mentality that we need. I don't even know if I tease him because he didn't really even have any knives. He just managed, but he managed big departments. And I learned about cost controls, and the Hyatt's a great hotel chain. We've had really great food and beverage over the years, and still now, I believe. And they have, banquets. I learned banquets. I learned offsite catering. There was so many things going on back in those days. And, it was interesting to watch how a big corporation moved. And I found out that wasn't for me. I really like the independent side of it.
Which part of it wasn't for you?
Most likely the part where if there was like personnel issues, sometimes, I was an executive sous chef and I was getting ready to get my own hotel, but we took bad managers who did bad things and we put them in other hotels. And I had a fundamental problem with that. And I won't name any names or say any locations, but it just didn't make sense to me. If somebody did something wrong, it's like, just don't keep moving them around. It's like the Catholic Church where they were moving the priests all around who were doing bad things. You know what I'm saying?
I didn't. What is the point of moving them around? Is it because
maybe they would do better? Or I just felt like, why are we sending our problems somewhere else? Why can't we just fix this?
I feel you. So
why don't you fire them? Like send them somewhere. Send them to the Ritz. Get them out of here.
You learned what you didn't like, but I'm sure that these 6 years gave you a lot of good habits. What were some of the better habits that you absorbed from working in a corporate setting?
I would definitely say the preparation for meetings, financial preparation, understanding menu writing, getting ahead on menu planning, executing banquets, really coaching and managing staff members. As I became a manager, I learned a lot more. But as a line cook, they don't really teach that much. They really want you to want that ability to be to step it up, right? But I did learn a lot about the fact that not everyone's trying to climb the same ladder, right? There's something it's interesting to me. There was a lot of people I worked with who were great cooks and managers that I didn't want them. They didn't want they didn't want what I wanted. They didn't want what I had. They didn't want what I was doing. So I learned to partner up with them and have them support me, and I supported them. And it became a really, that's that kind of teamwork I'm talking about. It's like, not everyone can be the main dog, and any main dog who's supported from the bottom is a heck of a lot stronger. And that's kind of how I built my career.
I want to go deeper into this. So you started by saying not everybody's climbing the same ladder. So it sounds like you're saying this combination of finding the certain strengths and weaknesses, the end games, and collaborating with people were you looking for people who had different end games, or what exactly, how are you collaborating and creating those win-win situations? I don't quite understand.
So for me, I knew what I wanted. I wanted to be the best. I was willing to do anything, everything it took, sacrifice family, life, time, everything, missed everything in my life. I didn't care. I wanted to be the best. I wanted to own my own restaurants. I wanted to be, at the time when I was at the Hyatt, all I cared about was kind of getting my own hotel before I was 30 years old. Okay. And that was kind of a dream, right? So that's the goal I had set. And I was achieving it on my way. And throughout that time, I saw other managers maybe climb over people. And those managers fell. They weren't supported by the people below them. So they didn't develop those relationships that I learned back in my days in Cambridge. They didn't develop the rapport and understanding of, what my strengths were, what their strengths were, didn't get that hello, goodbye, thank you. I need you to support me and do a good job for me so I can continue to do a good job and work my way up. So I always created a team, whether it was just the brigade or the people around me to help, you know, and not just was like the point of like getting them involved to make the decisions, having them help on the menu. I knew what I wanted on the menu. Hey, you know, Javier, what do you feel about this sauce? You know, Mish, tell me, how do you like this? Does this fit with the profile that we were thinking about today? So they kind of bought into what we were doing. So then even when I was there working with them, if I had to do other stuff, they were doing it. They were doing our thing. And it wasn't a me thing. It was an us thing.
I'm picking it up now. And this reminds me of what you were talking about in your TEDx, where not everybody wants the same thing. Some people want to rule the world, you know, rule their city, be the top dog. Other people want to go to work, bust their ass, get their paycheck, and then clock out and not take home with them. And that's fine. But you need to recognize who those people are and collaborate with those people. And that's so you identify these people who just wanted to bust their ass, and these became teammates, partners, in the sense that, hey, like, if I'm gonna try to be the top dog, I can't do it by myself. So I'm gonna compensate myself, my weaknesses, with your strengths, so we can get there together. Is that what I'm picking up from you?
Perfect. That's a perfect boil down of exactly what I do and still do now.
Yes.
30 years later.
That is the secret right there. I mean, it takes
and here's the greatest thing. And we've been able to pass it on to other people. So now in my group, those restaurants you mentioned, right? I have two partners. Both of them, one's in my director of operations, one's in culinary operations. They started with me as line cooks and an assistant manager in 2010. Now they own part of a $10 million restaurant group.
That's magic right there, man. That is magic.
They're building theirs. It's almost like a pyramid, right? And they're building theirs. They have their people below. And I got a guy right now, one of my chefs, he is going to be better than me. And I'm building, and we're working together, and he knows that, and he's keeping me up, and I'm bringing him up, and together we're pushing each other. And I, you know, that for me is the way we do it. I see it in all the great restaurants, you know. I mean, we're, you know, just because Thomas Keller, Daniel Boulud, and all these unbelievable chefs, they do the same thing with all their great proteges, and they move on, and it's going to feed the beast.
I want to pull back the layers in this, but I'm chomping at the bit. I'm going to put it off till we start talking about your empire, because you have built your own little empire in Reno, Nevada, and I want to talk about that. But before we get into your own businesses, I want to reflect on, I mean, like we mentioned, we kind of broke down the corporate experience. You were in San Francisco, Truckee. Any key mentors that we have not brought to the surface, any key lessons, any key experiences in your past that are worth talking about before we take our first break? And your first business was Moody's, correct?
First business I ever owned was Moody's.
Okay, so before this point, anybody that has not been brought to the conversation, any key lessons or mentors we can share before moving on?
Well, the biggest thing was I was staging again now. I was staging in Berkeley, and everyone knows Chez. I spent 3 weeks there. I was working at a private country club, so we were closed. I spent 3 weeks there peeling fava beans in the springtime, getting ready to open the club. Last day, it was great. It was amazing. I learned a ton, saw a ton, but did a lot of fava work. Last day of having lunch with the friend who got me the stage, Alice Waters walks over. She says, "Hey, Mark, great to meet you. Wendy, I'm glad Wendy brought you in. I heard you were a stud on the fava beans. Couldn't have done it without you. How's things up in Truckee, Lake Tahoe?" I go, "Great." She goes, "Where do you get your produce from?" I go, "The produce guy." She goes, "There's no farms up there?" I go, "I don't know." She goes, "Why not?" "Where do you get your seafood from?" "Right? Where do you get your meat from?" Oh, I don't know. "Why not? I left, started crying, took my big cell phone out, called my produce guy. I said, we know any farmers out there?" He's like, "My friend just opened up a place. Let's give him a call." And this guy, Gary, was growing some produce, was growing trees. And long story short, he's got a thriving produce business right now. And that's kind of started a local movement for myself and Reno and Lake Tahoe. So Alice Waters really hit me right between the eye and started me on my quest, which is kind of how I built my businesses.
I mean, there's a few lessons to take from this story. One, support local business, but I think there's a deeper underlying lesson here. What is it?
I think the question is, if you don't know the answer, you got to ask why not.
Yeah.
Find out, look, do the work. when I looked, I found. Before that, I didn't know.
Yeah, and I think the other lesson too is that I think we have a certain responsibility. We learn things as we go through life, and as we mature into the ultimate being we become, we pick up certain values, and we understand why those values are significant. And when we figure these things out, we need to reverberate. We need to echo those important values to others so we can spread the word. And in that one moment, and to this day, who you are as a chef, you can see it throughout your business, your desire to support local farmers, right? And it's our responsibility to echo these things and to share our values and to make communities better. Do you want to get into that?
Absolutely. Well said. That's exactly true. I mean, you need to have, what is your personal mantra? I mean, what do you do when you wake up and when someone says, what are you about, right? That's easy for me. Seasonal, simple, local, and fresh.
Yeah. I don't know. Trace it back to that one moment when Alex Waters had this conversation with you, but who knows? Maybe that was the hinge, right?
It was the hinge. It totally was. Before that, we were just going to be another restaurant. And then when we opened Moody's, we had farmers and ranchers lined up with duck eggs. And this is 2001, and it wasn't as prevalent as it is now. 20 years later, almost 18 years later, it's very prevalent now. Everyone and their mother's using local food, thank God, Whole Foods is here and co-ops are here. And, people want that now. It's kind of like, you recycle, you buy local food. It goes hand in hand.
Yeah. And just thank you so much for sharing that story. Cause I feel like you just in that one story, like embodied the essence of Restaurant Unstoppable with the mission just to get lessons like that, values like that, principles like that, virtues like that, and to encapsulate them and echo them throughout the industry. So people are trying to show up better. You were just talking about your experience with Alice Water and how she influenced your first restaurant. Take us to that point where you're setting out, you know that you're going to open your first restaurant, you're visioning, you're going through the motions. Paint that picture of who you were at this point. Knowing what you know now, paint that picture for us.
That's a great question, a great leading question for me. I will tell you, I was the 31-year-old rock star chef, had been real successful with the Hyatt, had run a private country club for 3 years, got to stage all around the country, spent time with Greg Kuntz, spent time in with Spanish chefs, and Jose Andres, spent time with Alice Waters. Here we are getting ready to open our first restaurant. And one of my investors said, hey, you guys really need to set up some systems. What's the system? What's the P&L system? What's this? What's that? We were like, no, we want to build it with our hands. We're digging holes and banging out walls and helping the contractor and taking rocks out of there and, and paying attention to all that stuff. And lo and behold, we opened the restaurant. It's packed. We're doing $300,000 a month in sales, but we're losing money.
Really?
None of our systems were set up. We didn't pay attention to all the things we should have paid attention to. We ended up, thank God, catching our breath, getting a chance to get all that stuff underneath us. But, what we didn't know then came back and hurt us. And, that business side of it is the part that back then really came up and snuck up on us. And we were able to kind of dig our way out of there by extra hard work. I had to start a catering company. But the things I know now are make sure that budget is set, make sure that you understand that P&L. If you're going to be the owner of a restaurant and start your own restaurant, either, hire a great accountant, understand all the systems, have a checks and balances in place. There's so much business that goes into a restaurant and opening a restaurant. And then you open it and it becomes a whole new ballgame.
Yeah, so
that's what happened to us.
Yeah, my follow-up question was going to be, what were those things you weren't paying attention to? But I think you kind of mentioned them: budgeting, P&L. Any specific lessons? Any specific things that? It's kind of self-explanatory, but if you can give us a nugget, something that knowing what you know now, that maybe might not be as common knowledge or as obvious. What was one thing that you weren't paying attention to?
I would probably say the fact that you got to balance like the culinary. The culinary / beverage wants of what you really feel is right to the financial fiscal responsibility side of things, right? That's probably the hardest thing that we had to do, is to try to find that out. And then if they don't match up and you realize that you can't have all that labor to do all these dreams you had, you end up doing it yourself.
Yeah. So what's the secret to being able to do what's right what's, responsible, and also be profitable. What are some of the tricks of the trade that you picked up and how to do that?
The easiest trick, and a lot of it is kind of either experiencing it firsthand, or if you're at a job now and you're thinking about going out on your own, I really suggest talking to whoever's in charge of the numbers and saying, hey, could I stage with you on the number side of things? You mind if I sit on a few P&Ls? Maybe we're an open book management. We let everyone see everything. I got open kimono the whole time. That's how we have help people open their own place. And if your place isn't like that, maybe they'll share numbers with you. But if you can see the systems they have, I say just the understanding you have to is manage to the percentages. Okay, budget's great. It's guesstimation, right? Actual, you need to know. The actual is going to tell you what your percentages are. So if you do 10 grand in sales, you got 3 grand for cost of goods. You got 3 grand for labor for the day. That's pretty simple, right? Yeah. But the point is if you do 5 grand in sales, the next day you don't have 3 and 3. You just lost $1 grand. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So managing those percentages and understanding that, and then everything. I think everyone does it pretty much the same for the most part. If you're open 7 days a week, granted, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, a little slower, so you might have a little higher. And then Wednesday, Thursday gets a little bit busier, so it gets a little bit. You make your money on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, when your percentages are much lower than that, and you're cranking sales. So you got to just try to find that mix. There's a ton of literature out there, a ton of webinars out there, a ton of things. I don't think as good podcast as yours is out there for this. But, the idea being is you just got to surround yourself and understand you don't know what you don't know.
It's so funny. I literally have this book sitting right next to me. This gentleman I'm looking, Zachary, it's either Weiner or Wiener. I apologize. But it's QuickBooks for restaurants. So, I mean, maybe the book is out there. Maybe the podcast will be happening soon. He's on my radar.
A couple of favorite ones that I've used in the past, but I think I actually lent one of them out. But it's Zingerman's. It's Ari Weisenberg. Zingerman's Guide to, there you go. The whole program.
Oh my God, it's so funny. He is my restaurant man crush. You heard it here. I'm not ashamed.
I've taken three classes from him. He's an amazing man.
Yes. I'm trying to actually, cat's out of the bag. I'm trying to get him back real hard right now just because I really just am so far behind what he's doing. Not far behind, but I'm behind him in what he's doing is what I'm trying to say. Like to the end.
I have it to him. Email me offline and I'll connect you to a person.
I just need to get him back. But I will use this as leverage for sure. You can count on that. So the other thing that you mentioned, I don't want to forget to ask. Thank you for the details on some of the ways we can manage budget and things we can do to be focusing on. I think the big takeaway there was manage percentages, right? When you're managing, think about the percentages, manage those percentages. With the takeaway, checks and balances was something else that you didn't have in place when you were opening Moody's. So give me some examples of those checks and balances that we should be creating from the very early days.
So, I mean, you just want access to the numbers on a daily basis, or at the very least every other day, or at the very, very least every week, to make decisions, to make information-based decisions. So what that means, if you have a P&L scenario with QuickBooks, or see to it, or we just changed over to Restaurant 365. There's a lot of different software systems out there.
All right. I just wanted to say Restaurant 365, current sponsor of the show. We love them. Thank you, Restaurant 365.
We are so in love with Restaurant 365. Shout out Restaurant 365. I think we have a pretty advanced team here with that many restaurants that we do. I think our guy has shown them, and when our guy Nick is so impressed with what we're doing, but also we taught them a few things too, which is kind of cool.
That's cool. I think I got you off track with your with our Restaurant 365 love. So we were talking about checks and balances. How is 365 serving as a check and balance?
So we got up-to-date knowledge, up-to-date reporting on labor and cost of goods, sales and budget on a daily basis. So and we make informed business decisions.
Gotcha. Beautiful. Any other big lessons from your 10 years? It was 10 years, right, at Moody's?
Yeah, 10 years. I would probably say numbers never take a day off. So, that P&L does not lie, and those numbers never take a day off. So you got to get in there. Trust me, we had a lot of fun. My partner, JJ, and I did have the ability. I did get to cook for Paul McCartney twice he played at our restaurant twice too, which kind of made some worldwide news.
Turkey is a very charming town. Like I only rolled through one day. But it's definitely got that old mountain town vibe, and there's tons of charm there. I don't know why I'm saying that.
I'm going to take it away there, and I've learned it is take the job that you like the least and make it your favorite, and you'll never have a bad day.
Take the job you like the least and make it your favorite, and you'll never have a bad day. How do you take the job you like the least and make it your favorite?
Let's just say like you don't like looking at numbers, but make it like the first thing you do when you have a cup of coffee or as you go for a run, or nowadays with the phones, but before, maybe on a stationary bike you could read the P&L. Take the things that you don't really like about your day and try to make them your favorite part, and eventually you end up loving it, and then everything else you already loved, save the wire, you never have a bad day.
I feel like there's another. I think we can go deeper. So, what kind of mindset does that take? I think that's where this is. It's a mindset thing. It's how do you get to that point where you love the things that you hate? What did that internal dialogue look like?
Well, it's definitely a Jedi mind trick to a certain degree. But if you're going to be unstoppable, if you're going to put the time, energy, effort into what you're doing in your business, and you're going to own your own restaurant or get towards owning your own restaurant, you're going to do things that you've never thought you could humanly do. I can promise you that much. Unless you're lucky.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, that's great. I'm happy for you. But you're going to go through some mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional anguish. And if you can learn to harness that power and turn that into positive things, look at the amount of mental illness we have in our business. Look at the amount. I was sober for 10 years. I drank myself, self-medicated myself until I got my act together, and had to I learned a lot of these skills when I learned more life skills, and that's a big part of our business these days.
Yeah, but I think it's really important. I was kind of making light of the statement you said. You got to make yourself. You got to love the thing that you hate doing, like as if it's not possible. But the thing is, it's totally possible.
Totally possible.
And that's the beauty of being Homo sapien. Right. We have this thing in the front of our head. It's called the frontal lobe that gives us the power to override emotion and to take all these anxieties, all these feelings that we have and squash them. Because that's happening in the reptilian part of our mind, or not even the reptilian, more like the animal, the more primitive part of our mind. We don't need those things. They're not even real, like they're inside of us. And once we can identify these emotions and say, you know what? I don't need that emotion. That emotion is not serving me. Like, you squash it and override it and choose to be happy, which is the really magic. We get to choose that too. It's totally possible. And it's a gift that we've been given for sure.
Yeah. And it's something that you shouldn't take lightly. And it's something that you should try to, you can apply that in your personal life at home. You can apply that in any other place in your life. And I find that life's gotten a heck of a lot easier once I've taken that approach, as opposed to before, maybe at the Moody's days, in the beginning Moody's days, which was, oh, poor me, my life's so hard, I'm this persecuted worker, oh, I have to work 85 hours a week, wah, wah, wah. And my business partner said to me, hey, you're an idiot, work less, or fix yourself.
Yeah.
He's like, he was really smart, and he kind of taught me a few other things, and he's like, just, that's on you, Mark, don't blame that on me. So, knowledge comes in the most interesting ways.
It does, right? So 10 years at Moody's in Truckee, California. Why leave? What was going on? It sounds like you had, usually it takes time to build up this reputation, this network in a community. You spent 10 years building that network, building this reputation within this community. Yep. Left that. Why did you leave?
Well, we had some really great times there. My business partner and I, we went through our little ups and downs. I had a little time away. He had some time away. And the restaurant, we had the big crash, 08, 09, especially Truckee. We got hit real hard. And really, there was only room enough for one of us in the restaurant. So when he came back in from a couple years off, I had an opportunity to either go back to Boston. I was going to go to Napa or San Francisco or Reno. And I chose Reno. I found this really cool spot down there. I had some friends kind of say, hey, I got an idea to help you start a restaurant. And I had this vision of this restaurant that I ended up opening up.
in 2010 called Campo down here in Reno, right across the street. And it was this kind of Italian-focused wood-burning oven, fresh pastas, communal gathering place, really fun, energetic, inexpensive, like Italian trattoria, straight out of all the magazines that you'd see. And I actually just got back from Italy at the time, and I said I knew what I wanted to do. So that brought us to Truckee.
Yeah. So why, what was it? I mean, you mentioned you had friends in Reno. I mean, I think that's a good move, but what was it about Reno that said to you, this is a good market to open this restaurant? This is a good market. This is where I want to move my career to invest in my future. Why Reno?
First off, that's a great question, because I would have started off by saying I would have asked myself, why did I want to go? I spent 10 years as a restaurant owner in Truckee. I had three different things going on up there. I came to Reno because it's a half hour away. And believe it or not, the co-op down here, and I researched through farmers and ranchers and talked to a few of the restaurants. And there's more local food down here in Reno than there is in Tahoe, in all the regions in Tahoe, especially back in 2010. Mm-hmm. And I partnered up with a few different ranchers and farmers down here. And I've been already working my butchery skills. And we started making salamis. And I started really getting into some of this really like kind of hard-ass, everything homemade, scratch, everything by hand.
Yeah.
It made sense to come to Reno because I was able, when I came down, everyone knew who I was already. And they're like, oh, you're coming here? Nice. Awesome. It was kind of a big deal.
I was going to say, it sounds like the lesson we pulled from earlier, this idea of knowing who you are, knowing where you want to go, and finding the people that can complement where you're going and giving you that foundation. It sounds like you had the pieces of your puzzle in Reno, the people that needed to fit together to build this empire, your community.
Yep, we started with that. We started with the basics. I also knew that I wanted to set it up financially differently. So I really paid attention to the numbers on a daily basis, which was part of our open book management. We had a mission and concept statement that we've still followed to this day. We are really in tune with our employees and the community. We use social media and all the new tools that were available to us to try to really kind of, really encompass ourselves with a great culture. Yeah. And that culture kind of kicked us off into the next realm of this restaurant growth.
Yeah. Let's backpedal a little bit. You said you wanted to open this financially different. Paint the picture of what do you mean financially different? What was it before and what did you want it to be?
So we go back to Moody's, where I really didn't have any systems in place. And I knew the French fries are great because I made lunch, cooked breakfast, lunch, and dinner for everybody. When I opened up down here, I still had the same control of the food. I brought in a few really great chefs to work with me and help me create the concept. But we really had a great financial sense of, we let the numbers dictate what we're going to do. So we shot really low, and then we grew into it versus overshooting and having to break it down. So, I knew daily where we were from a standpoint of food, cost of goods, cost of beverage.
Wait, I want to make sure I understand. So you said you started low, meaning what do you mean starting low? You started low.
So to forecast a restaurant, if you're trying to do a P&L, right, we're going to try to raise money. So, I might say, I'm going to do 50 grand a week, 75 grand a week, 100 grand a week. And I'd say, okay, 100 grand a week is really high. 75 is middle. 50 is my worst case scenario. So I forecast everything at the lowest case scenario. And right away we came out and we were successful because we jumped up right away to like 75K.
Okay. So I'm loving this so much. I wanted to make sure that I understood before I made my point. I always say two things determine your growth. One is people. The other is cash flow. Yep. And if you keep that cash flow, what you're saying, the lesson I feel like is if you keep that cash flow reasonable and manageable, then you don't, out of the gates, you don't overshoot. You don't try to overachieve. And then as you start getting that cash, as the cash flow increases, then you can start to say, well, we have more cash flow now. Our priorities are low, our liabilities are low because we only were planning and forecasting for 50K.
Yes. Yes. 100%.
Gotcha.
Cash flow is king.
I love it. So it's always better to undershoot. And to know that you can manage your liabilities with the littlest amount possible. And then as cash flow increases, that's how you scale.
Yep.
And you went with that mentality.
Scary line, you get scary line. You know, we ended up there with 6 managers. We started with 2. But, you know, we worked our fingers to the bone and we just said, hey, all your hourly people, you know, we identified they eventually would be managers. We just had to pay them a little extra overtime and you know, until we knew we had the money in the bank to cover the labor. We knew that sales were stable and we were going to continue to do these numbers. And, you know, we let that kind of dictate the business. We never sacrificed the food, you know, so that's the part that we learned was don't let that sacrifice the food. We held our line and then we just built forward. And that's that slog and that's that mental toughness that I built. That's the mental toughness that we built as a company. That's the mental toughness that you can teach people. And things like this are really important that people understand exactly all the steps that go into it, you know?
So you knew going into this that and I think this is something, and I really hope that we inspire more people to do what you did, to put the priority on the value of food, right? To put the value in the food. Where did you make up, if your food's so expensive and you're choosing to put the value in the food, where were you making up the rest to be able to justify and sustain that?
Once we started doing a few things with, we made a lot of things ourselves, so we didn't have to buy many things in. So granted, we bought the whole pigs. We spent more money on we spent more money on the great local vegetables. We bought all the local animals whole and all our stuff whole. We spent more money on labor, but our cost of goods was in line. So, you know, cost of goods was at 25% and our labor was at 35%. You know, we're always shooting for that 60 blend, but, you know, so we still had it, but we used more hands. And then, you know, as an owner, I still cook, but not as much as I used to. As an owner, I did all the work myself and the other sous chef. We worked 16-hour days forever.
How long did it take you to eventually remove yourself from in the business to where you are now, where you're pretty much working on the business? You have time to talk to me. So, and I know recently you just hired a new chef at Liberty to replace you full time. Chef,
it's all dictated by cash flow. Also, you know, it's like I can afford to be the CEO of my company now, chef CEO of the company, because all our restaurants have really good, strong cash flow. Well, you know, they did, and they'll eventually get back where we were. But, you know, we're working really hard to make sure that everybody has a seat at the table. That, you know, you can't have, even though I love cooking the most, I've learned my business side of things, and that, you know, during the last 10 weeks, I was the only chef on staff, and I cooked for all the different things we had going on. And then now we started to bring staff back. You know, I'm getting to kind of transition back into that CEO role, so I can throw on the kitchen knives and get in there and just mix it up. And now kind of doing both things.
Got you. So there's just so much that's on the table right now, and this is the tough part when I get somebody like you, who's got such a track record of success and longevity in the industry. Like, what do we talk about, right? You've opened how many restaurants since you've been in Reno? 5?
Well, if you count the ones I've opened, sold, and closed, it's close to like 12.
12. Okay. So I'm just going to, I don't know where to go. So I'm going to let you tell us where to go. If you can reflect over the past 10 years of opening and closing restaurants, evolving as a restaurateur, learning, what were the biggest lessons you've had in the past 10 years?
You know, I'd probably say my biggest lessons would be the fact, like, you know, I've had some really shitty things happen.
Give me an example.
I've had some, I've lost $2 million in a restaurant, had to close it, and didn't bankrupt, fought my way back. We've had an E. coli. We had a case of E. coli come out of my pastry shop with a past employee manager that we had to settle that case, and you know, that didn't necessarily help the $2 million loss either. I've had to weather that storm and not really know anything about it, and kind of dig my way out of that, which was not very fun at all.
Wait, this was a lawsuit?
Yeah. So we had an E. coli breakout based on a tainted dessert that was sold from an old pastry chef.
Okay.
And, you know, the health department came in and was like, hey, we sold it to 2 different outlets, 2 different restaurants, and people got sick. No one died, thank God, and everyone got taken care of via the insurance. but I had to stand there and take all those punches.
So is this all one thing? The $2 million hit, the lawsuit, and the bankruptcy? Is that
$2 million happened? That happened before.
Okay.
And this is the nail in the coffin.
All right. So let's talk about the first hiccup, the $2 million. What happened? And I don't know what you're at liberty to discuss, but if you're reflecting back, what happened? What would you have done differently to protect yourself from that situation? Paint it out for us.
So it's funny. I seem to make the same mistakes a couple times, right? Do the same thing over and over, expecting different results. Definition of crazy, but I'm a little crazy. The idea was eventually I get it right though. The idea was the same way that I developed these 7 restaurants, and we were I created kind of our food hub, and we were buying the animals, grinding the animals, making the burger buns, everything. We were supplying 3 burger meat restaurants. I was supplying all the restaurants I was doing. I had a couple of management contracts out there. It was this beautiful thing. And someone came to me and said, after I knew the numbers, I kind of got a little sideways. I had brought in different partners and different managing aspects. And someone came and said, "Hey, Mark, who's the CEO?" And I said, "Oh, not me." And they said, "Well, you need a CEO. You're really taking your business here." And come to find out, I had the managers in place, but I didn't have the support that I needed to be. I didn't have the team around me. I had taken care of everyone below, but as I came out, it was just me, and I'm just a dishwasher from Boston. So I didn't have that set up there. So I think by the time I figured it out, I probably should have I closed it, but then I didn't bankrupt. I sold a few of I sold a couple golden geese. I sold Campo, I sold 2 burger meat restaurants. And I took that money and I started to fill the hole. And let's say there was $1 million left. And then I didn't, I just went to work.
I don't know if I'm still quite picking up the essence story, the lesson. I think it's there, and I want to really make sure it's crystal clear. So you built up everybody around you, because these are a lot of moving parts to get multiple businesses. It's almost like you're going for that Zingerman's model of vertical integration, right?
That's what we were doing.
Yeah. And what you're saying is you spent all of your time building up everyone around you and giving them the things that they need, the systems and the processes and the resources they needed. But when you emerged above that, you didn't have what you need. What you said as CEO was what you needed?
Yes. So we had built a great restaurant group, and each restaurant in its own right was doing great. Mm-hmm. But the place that was going to be the market, and it was like this, it was our own version of the Zingerman's, beautiful, beautiful place, ready to rock and roll with all these different facets. That was new to us, and it wasn't a restaurant. It was 15 different things. And I had all these managers, but then you get up to the corporate level, and I didn't have that set up. So I didn't have the CFO, the CMO, the CEO. So up at the top, no one was speaking to each other because it was just me.
Okay, I'm picking it up now. So
I missed that next layer, which I have now.
Gotcha.
I've rebuilt that over the last 5 years.
The ultimate vision was to get all these satellite businesses that serve their own unique purpose, kind of like back. This is the theme of today's show, is surrounding yourself with that foundation and rounding yourself off with other people, with other intentions, with other destinations, and saying, how can we go someplace similar, but collectively, but different in our own regard, right? And then you bring them together to serve one purpose. That's the vertical, and just for anybody who's listening, that's what we mean by the vertical integration. Like with the Zingerman's school of thought, they had an opportunity to scale nationwide, but they chose to take that energy, and instead of going out, they went deep, and they put all that energy into their community to strengthen the relationships within their community. And that's what that's the future I would like to see for the restaurant industry personally. That's why you're here today, because clearly you have those same values. But when you think like that, there's another layer that's necessary. There's the upper layer of the managers that manage that. Yep. And those layers are CEO, CFO, CMO, like all the O's, yep. All the officers. So,
I had a scratch pad, and I was moving the numbers around, and I was moving money all around, And, it just, I didn't do anything wrong. It just caught up to me. And I was like, oh man, here I am again.
Yeah.
But I'm a shit creek survivor. I know how to put my nose down to work.
Yeah.
So I weathered the storm, didn't know what was going to happen next. And lo and behold, I got some other opportunities. And since then, I'd like to think that we made some really good decisions. I brought on a CFO partner. I've taken a lot of classes. I've learned to listen. I've hired Tommy and Nick, and I promoted a lot of people from within. We strengthened our core. And I was a big fan of vertical integration. I used to love talking about Henry Ford. He was the first American, as I understand, company to vertically integrate, right? So he had a leather company, and he was selling to Pontiac and to GMC and himself. And that we do the same thing now. I sell products to other people. So I forgot Henry Ford went bankrupt a few times before he got there. So, but he kept on his vision. And that's kind of how I feel like what we're doing now.
You said you brought on a CFO, chief financial officer, in the Tommy and Nick. Who are Tommy and Nick? What roles?
Tommy's our director of culinary operations, and Nick's our director of operations. And kind of my role as a CEO. Tanya is our CFO, and she makes sure our finances are in check. I'm kind of the leader and looking at different deals and creating that excitement. And Tommy is kind of all boots in all things in kitchen, and Nick's kind of all things in front of the house. And then, we were using C2 for the last 10 years. We just transferred over to Restaurant 365. So now our managers they've always had a great responsibility to the P&L also.
Yeah. So one thing I'm curious about, as you're setting up all these businesses for vertical integration, what about business entity? What type of business are you? Is there one single LLC that governs all those, or is it separate? How did you guys approach that?
So it's definitely different approaches. All depends on, some of the state. Check your state tax code where you are. We have no state tax here in Nevada, so that's great. So we set up everything here as LLCs.
Or is it multiple LLCs? How's it work?
We have about 7 different LLCs, and right now we're in the middle of kind of swooping it all up into a management group. So we have one kind of overseeing management group, and that pays. We just financially strategize what the best scenario is for us. With 6 restaurants, one group. This company, Sasso Concepts, pays everybody, right? Everyone pays into the pot here. We really were able to drive down a lot of our fixed costs from our EIDC, unemployment insurance, a lot of our health plans have just gotten so much better and more affordable for ourselves and our staff. It allows us to pay ourselves better. And then each company is its own LLC. So it's like a management group company, and every company has its own LLC.
Why is that important to break it up and keep them isolated?
Well, there's definitely some legal, and I don't want to. I'm not too much of an expert on that. So it's just my opinion.
You got your chief legal officer for that, right?
Exactly, right. Is one, we're more fiscally protected from that. You can't pierce the corporate veil. If one company did screw up or one company did go BK, it wouldn't bring everything down. That's one really good benefit of that. Each entity needs to really manage itself, and so we can see the actual numbers from each place. If everything's all jumbled up, you can't really see. If it's jumbled up, you can't get a good idea of what's going on in there daily.
Yeah,
so that's been the 2 biggest reasons why we kept everything separate.
I love it. You've been giving us some great stuff today, Chef. You really have. I'm loving the conversation. We started today's conversation, today's free-flowing conversation, with this idea of creating culture of learning, caring, and respect. And I kind of want to come full circle. And we talked a lot about business, operations, but how are you making sure that these things, learning, caring, respect, are happening every day? How are you constantly living that culture every day?
Well, I could talk about pre-COVID and then what we're doing right now. Or was that, or you want to just go right to what we're doing right now?
We're definitely going to get into COVID, but before we get into that, I wanted to tie up this portion of the conversation with.
So the ways that we kind of make sure that our caring, learning, and respect culture goes on a daily basis is, we stay in touch with everybody. We empower our managers, and our managers believe in that when we have our weekly meetings, which are so key. We read that. We start off by reading our mission statement every single manager meeting. And then that mission statement is posted in the restaurant. And then when we do our lineups, we do an AM lineup for lunch and a PM lineup for dinner. That mission statement's read again. And we live it, and we breathe it. And we don't laugh at it. We don't scoff at it. We say, this is who we are.
Yeah. The big lesson I recently learned on the show was the next, for me, it was like, okay, something new, another layer of knowledge on top of what we've learned is this idea of rituals and language.
Okay.
We talk about culture all the time, right? Culture, but every culture has rituals and it has languages, right?
I like that a lot.
I came from Mario Del Perro from Mendocino's Farms, and that's what you're doing when you have these meetings. Those are rituals, and your language is that mission statement, right? These words you use to describe who we are and what we do, and we need to start thinking about these things, and we need to make them rituals. Like they need to happen constantly to reinforce who we are, our culture, and that's what I'm hearing from you.
Absolutely, and then, you call that your SOPs, right? Your standard operating procedure. Right? We set up the pass the same way every day. We set the bus station up the same way every day. We set the pizza station up the same way every day. When we cut the kale, it goes in the same container the same way every day. When we come bring the dishes up, we bring them the same way every day. We don't change those things, and it's a reason, because it works best. Yeah. Now, if someone has an idea, they want to make it better, we're all ears. You got to make sure you got to prove that it works, right?
Yep.
So
this is a question before we go to COVID. One thing I want to ask all my guests, our mission statement, speaking of rituals, our mission statement is to inspire, empower, and transform the industry. How have you transformed over these 25 plus years?
I've become, in the last 25 years, I think I've become more of a listener. I've become, believe it or not, more vocal. When I listen a lot and pay attention to what's going on, I kind of feel if I see something and I don't say something, I'm missing my opportunity. So I've learned. I was very aggressive at the beginning of my career, and it served me decently. But I used to be that aggro chef. I necessarily, I had respect, but people might have feared me versus really cared for me. And as time's gone over the years, I've kind of learned to kind of turn that the other way around and kind of use that into like building a team and, using my football skills to lead. And now making sure that if I see something, I say something, and the way I say it is with caring and respect. And it's received a lot better.
I love it. Okay. Thank you for getting into that. And we have to talk about COVID. I decided to drop the Corona Chronicles because I feel like it's here. It's among us. Let's just kind of incorporate COVID into the chronological. And now we're current time, right? COVID's hit. We felt the pain. How did you react to that? I don't want to spend so much time on how you reacted. It's more about now what you're doing in your business right now to adapt and what you plan to do in the future to stay relevant. So get into that.
So what we did is 2 days before the governor closed down Nevada, we closed down, laid off all 222 people in our company. We knew it was the right thing to do. We helped them, ourselves included. Well, we didn't get any pay, but the partners and I, we had our management team. We all stayed. We went to every restaurant, shook everybody's hand, gave a bunch of food, said, let's stay in touch. And then we sat back for a couple of days and tried to gather our marbles. And we opened up a little bit of part-time, and did some to-go orders. I got involved in a few programs of feeding homeless people and feeding people in need. Still doing that now. One's called Delivering with Dignity, Reno Sparks. It's probably going to go to the end of the year. Yeah. Lieutenant Governor, myself, and another United Way got together. We're feeding people out of the back of our restaurant. And then, what we're doing is we've just been in contact with everybody. And over the last few weeks, we started to bring some people back to do the to-go orders, and we pivoted to a store scenario and online ordering scenario. And yesterday, we reopened 3 of the restaurants, and today we opened the 4th. Nice. And we're following our CDC, Washoe County, our state. We've retrained our people. We're taking it serious. We're trying to be right down the middle here. We're saying some people don't seem not to care about the virus, right? And you know, I took this. I always have this on. I took it off for this.
Yeah.
I sit in my office right now, but you know, some people don't care about the virus, and we're not telling them what to do. We're not requiring them to wear a mask. We have a self-check. We have a whole program. I'll gladly share my reopening packet with you if you wish.
Yeah, if you are willing, I'm absolutely.
Any way you want.
I'd love to share that in the show notes for sure. If you're willing to share that, thank you.
It's a case of us saying, like, you know, we're going to do everything we possibly can to keep ourselves safe. We want to make sure our staff's safe. Our staff's been retrained on all this information and knowledge. And then we're making sure that we're giving our guests a chance to be retrained also. Because the customers need to be retrained.
Well, what do you mean? Get into that.
You know, one of my friends gave me this note. She owns a retail shop, and she's killing it. And she's like, Mark, get ready to retrain your customers. And I thought about it. When I went to the market, or I went to the grocery store, I went to the Home Depot, I had to really kind of learn how to behave in there again, you know? Mask, no mask, some people gloves, some people wrapped in plastic, some people not carrying, some people gather. You know, I just had to, you know, I had to mentally process. Where was my role? Was I going to yell at him? No. Was I going to be mad? No. Was I going to walk the other way? Yeah, I kind of avoided him. Was I going to go back to the store? Maybe. You know, I just had to kind of learn to be a customer again. And that's what we kind of trained our staff to explain and understand, to give the grace and space for our customers to learn. You know, and we want to answer the questions. And we got these really cool things. My buddy had this idea. So we made these stickers for all our masks, right? They're like, another customer, she said, hey, Mark, I just went to a restaurant. It's so dreary. She goes, let your staff paint pictures. And so you went back to that idea. Remember that TV show, the movie Waiting, and they had the flare?
Yeah.
Check these stickers out, right? It's, I'm busy. Cool mask, bro. Right? I mean, so I reached out to my buddy. He makes badges, like a national cut for badges. He made all these killer, look at this, like braces.
I love it.
He's going right on the outside of your mask.
It's true though. I mean, there's one thing I've been thinking about, like so much of what we do is being shielded with our face now. Like we need to communicate with our smiles, and you know, we can't even smile to people anymore. And we know that we're happy. There's never been a time that's been more important to smile with your eyes. Is something that I always used to say. And when you smile so big that your eyes light up, right?
And before COVID, remember I was a waiter too. And when I was going to culinary school, I used to serve tables. If I got my hand on the shoulder, I had 25% tip. Done. You know, there's not even a question. Can't touch anybody now.
I know. Well,
stickers in the flare. Getting rid of the flare from that movie Waiting. That's what we kind of went for.
Yeah. So the big things I'm taking away as far as how you reacted is, and this is what I've been saying, is that, like, listen, business, money is all just a tool to measure relationships and to manage relationships. That's why money existed. If you look at the evolution of humans and how money came onto scene, it's because we needed a way to manage relationships and track relationships. And that's what shells were. Favors, IOUs, right? Which evolved into cash. But relationships never went away. Just because cash flow stopped doesn't mean your relationships aren't there. And that's what the business is. It's those relationships. And we can still manage those. Those relationships can still be strong. We might not have cash flow, but if we can keep the relationship strong, the cash will come as soon as the everything gets lifted, right? And I think that's what we need to be focusing on, is those relationships.
If you don't mind, I'm going to try to define that for you. Ready?
Yeah.
Social capital.
Yes, and that's, those relationships are assets, and it's weird to think of it that way. You don't want to think of people as money, but at the end of the day, coming back full circle to how you talked about this, it's all about who you surround yourself with. It's about finding out what your strengths are, and finding out and being self-aware enough to know what your weaknesses are, and to surround yourself with those people that will make you complete. And that was your biggest mistake, when you didn't have those CFOs around you, or in your executive team around you. It's a theme today.
The willingness. I think it goes into the willingness to be wrong too, right? Who wants to sit on a podcast and say that I screwed up? I do. That's what it's about, right? I know so many people don't even like admitting they did something. They can't, something screwed up. I
wanted to highlight your humility, by the way. That is a very valuable.
Who am I trying to impress? Who am I trying to kid? It is what it is, man. It's like don't be afraid of who you are.
Mark, before we go to the speed round, you mentioned that you focusing on more slow food, fine, not, I wouldn't say necessarily fine dining, more like just like casual fine.
Yeah, casual. Yeah, casual. We do some great stuff. Local.
Your segment is the hardest segment, like arguably to manage COVID, right? Because it's food that doesn't necessarily travel well, but you're making that adaptation. What technology did you adopt within your business to be able to do that right? Because it sounds like before maybe you weren't quite set up for it because that wasn't the niche you were going for.
Yeah, we got it right with Aloha and grabbed our online ordering.
Okay.
We created a store in the front of the restaurant. So technology wise, we brought in some refrigeration that we had kind of kicking around downstairs. We brought back our store that was from that restaurant that I failed a couple of years ago. Kind of funny. The $2 million lost place ends up getting us over the hump. And then, just using the technology from the online ordering platform, we moved our kitchen from the wood burning oven to downstairs, which allowed us to make bigger pizzas.
Got you.
And survive during that time.
So Aloha had features built in that you were just able to like plug into your business or turn on in your business.
God bless them. They made that really available for all their customers out there. And our Wiz team got together, and within like 2 days, we had an online ordering platform online for all the 3 restaurants that we reopened for takeout.
Awesome.
Pretty cool.
I love this conversation. You've been incredible. I was curious. I'm still a little hesitant to get into the whole COVID thing. One thing that worries me is this idea we're doing all these things to show everybody, like, putting up dividers or wearing masks. And the argument is we got to do these things to make people feel safe. And my concern, and I'm just curious what you think about this, is are we communicating that that's safe, or are we communicating that's not safe because we need to do all these things? What are we really communicating?
Yeah. I mean, the thing about the barriers, I think that's for the smaller places that can't spread out to get that 6 foot. The first thing I hope goes away is our masks and 6 foot social distancing.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's just a period of time. And it's right. It's true. I know we have a restaurant, our restaurant's down in Carson in Gardnerville. They don't give 2 fucks about that. And we do. We have to, because we got to protect our staff. Yeah. And I'm not going to we made a decision at the beginning. Safety's first. Mm-hmm. I've been through my own epidemic when a fucking E. coli hit here. So our case was staff stays safe. No one cares until they get someone sick.
Yeah.
So we cared from the beginning.
And the first question I have for you is, what is your it factor, a habit, a trait, a characteristic you believe most contributes to your success? And when you're answering these, come at me with one word to a sentence.
Okay, you want my it right now? You ready?
How does that go for it?
My leadership.
What is your biggest weakness?
Following the shiny object.
Oh, I feel that, brother. What is one question you ask or thing you look for during the interview process when you're growing your team?
Can you make marinara sauce?
What are you looking for?
People who understand it's more than just cooking.
What is your biggest challenge today?
Striking balance in my life.
How are you overcoming that challenge?
Opening my heart to other things.
Share one code of conduct or behavior you teach your team. This is a core value, a way to be, a way to act.
Respect our products, respect our people.
Share one uncommon standard of service you teach your team. This is a way that you go above and beyond to serve your guests that's common within your restaurants, but not common throughout the industry.
I mean, the 2-minute check back is kind of where we go. But I'd probably say the fact that making the customer feel right and heard.
What is one book that's a must read to make us a better person or restaurant operator?
We already talked about one of them. I'm going to go to the E-Myth, which is a great one, I think, especially at the beginning as you're kind of learning.
Yep, the entrepreneurial myth. And actually, we just came out with a PDF with I think the 6 most recommended books on the show based off of the amount of times they've been recommended. And that book surprisingly was not on the list. So I made sure to add it to the list because I believe that's a must read personally.
It was a must read for me.
Yeah, for sure. And just for anybody who's curious what it's about, it's basically how to inject systems and processes into your business is the simplest way to explain. What is one thing you feel restaurateurs don't do well enough or often enough?
Listen.
Yes. Name one service you've hired or outsourced. So when I say service, I'm thinking about kind of to what we were talking about earlier, people, right? Somebody that compensated for your weakness, that you've brought on, that you've outsourced to, a human being or a company that provides some type of service.
Best move ever, Vast CFO Group.
Vast, V-A-S-T?
Yep. Virtual accounting. They do all the accounting for us.
Beautiful. And what is one piece of technology that you've recently adopted that's had a huge impact on your operation?
365, Restaurant 365.
I love when my sponsors get recommended organically. That makes me feel
that's organically done. I did not know.
That's a standard for the show. You need to be recommended organically on the show to be a sponsor. I've shot myself in the foot so many times because of that, but it's doing the hard things the right thing sometimes.
Yeah. Well said. Well said.
If you have, okay, this is the last question, by the way. So it's a doozy. Get ready for it. If you got the news, you'd be leaving this world tomorrow. Everything would be gone with your departure. The memories of you, your work, and your restaurants would be gone with your departure, with the exception of 3 pieces of wisdom that you could leave behind for the good of humanity and for your legacy. What would those 3 pieces of wisdom be?
Eat local food. Okay, number 1. 2, take the job you hate the most and make it your favorite.
2.
And then work to strike balance.
3. Mark, this has been an incredible conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your story, your knowledge, and your mentorship. We wrap up every chat by calling somebody out. So who's one person you recommend? And if you can't think of just one person, if you can call multiple people, somebody you respect and admire and believe would make a great guest mentor like you made for us today.
I'm going to give 2 people. One, I think, is an amazing woman, Jennifer Bushman. She is a world-class leader in sustainable fishing industries. And she's really popular and really smart. So if you have any interest in anything to do with sustainable seafood, and she works with some of the greatest chefs all over the country, she's a very good friend of mine. I just recently hooked up with her because we're trying to really up our seafood game here. Okay. Colin Smith from Roundabout Catering.
Colin Smith and Jennifer Bushman. Look out. I'm coming after you guys. I'd love to get you on the show. And how can we connect if we're inspired, motivated by you? We want to come join your team, maybe come stage or whatever. What's the best way to connect?
You can find us on all of our websites, but we're on Liberty Food and Wine Exchange.com, libertyfoodandwine.com, Reno Local Food Group. If you hit on that, you'll find a logo with all our restaurants. You can connect to any of our restaurants there. I'm at Mark Estee on Twitter, at Mark Estee on Facebook, and at Mark Estee on Instagram. We're out there in all the social media channels.
And this is episode 717. If you head over to restaurantunstoppable.com/717, you'll find a summary of today's discussion, as well as a link to any service or tool recommended and how to connect with Mark. And Mark, just thank you so much. I like to say that I would not be able to do what I do if not for people like you. So thank you so much for making time and being so generous with your knowledge. There is no questioning. You are unstoppable. Cheers.
Thanks, Eric.
If you enjoyed this video, please help us out. You can do it by liking, sharing, subscribing, and hitting that bell icon. It really helps out. And don't forget, there's a complete archive of every episode with show notes at restaurantunstoppable.com.